3, 2, 1, go.
Hello, hello, hello. This is Corey Thompson from Dice Tower Dish, Dice Tower News, and Above Board.
Oh my goodness. And this is the Podfather of gaming, Stephen Bonacore. You are listening to Board Games Insider, episode 280. Wow. And we are recording it on June 14th, 2023. Board Games Insider is a proud member of the Dice Tower Network, and my unboxing video, Dr. Thompson, of Ticket to Ride Legacy from the UKGE has over 7,000 views. That's over 2 times the number of views that I've ever gotten for a YouTube video. And you know who doesn't get 7,000 views on videos? I can't even say. That might be Tom Vassell. So it's actually crazy the number of hits that I'm getting on this video, and it was literally a 1-minute video where I stood there and I just recorded it.
It's an amazing scoop. You had it first.
I am the first one to have. So it just goes to show you it's about the scoops you can get. So
despite being Stephen Bonacore, you got that many views.
Not because of, despite.
Despite.
There you go. So, Dr. Thompson, please tell us what is happening in your world these days.
Why am I only Dr. Thompson when you have mean things to say to me, or when you're saying something really amazing about yourself?
You know, I got to give you this compliment, though. Do you know how many people have come to me recently and said, wow, Corey Thompson has been such an amazing addition to the podcast. So stroke your ego with that a little bit. And please tell me so that we don't belabor this forever.
It's cost me a fortune to pay off all these people. So I just want to put out there that Above Board is going strong. We are releasing 2 videos a week. They're doing really well. I won't say how many hits our top videos are getting, but it might be twice as many as unboxings of Ticket to Ride, which I wish we had done.
Maybe next time you could do it.
Maybe next time. So our latest one is we have the Gamesters, where we basically play around in Vegas and do all sorts of crazy things in an homage to many of these famous gangster movies. Fun video. It was really cool to make. Also, I'm going to be at a couple cons because convention season is hitting us strong. So it might be a little late. I hope I see you at Origins, but I think Origins will be ongoing to ending by the time this releases.
Yeah.
But after Origins, RageCon in Reno, I'm going to be a special guest out there. So
nice.
Happy to talk and see anybody. Looking forward to a little bit of traveling, a little bit of talking, a little bit of schmoozing.
That is great. I did see the Gamesters, gangsters video.
I thought you'd get a kick out of it.
I had a great kick out of all the stuff that occurs when you talk about mobster things in gaming terms. That was particularly humorous. All the stuff that Above Board has been doing has been great. I hope everybody gets a chance to hit your YouTube channel. But in the meantime, I will mention the Podfather of Gaming's YouTube channel, which I implied just a moment ago with the 7,000 views. If you want to see what Ticket to Ride Legacy looks like underneath when you open the box, there's no spoilers there because as soon as you buy the game, you have to open it and you'll see what's in that box. And it's a big butt box. And
I'm so excited about it.
I can't take and as I said, it's a dream team of game designers, right? It's Alan Moon, it's Rob Davio, and Matt Leacock. And these guys have created, this genre essentially in every way. To me, it's so exciting to hear that they're going to be, that this game is going to be coming out.
Quiet about it. I never heard it coming. I mean, I've been hanging out with those guys, and I never heard inklings of it coming. It's so cool. Such good.
Sadly, you don't have an inside track. I knew about it. No, I knew about it because the Gathering of Friends is one of the times that they would get together and they were playing it. And at first, I didn't know what they were doing behind closed doors, but that was. And then all of a sudden,
I was at Gathering. It was closed doors to me.
It was years before that. actually.
Oh,
At least the year before that we're play testing. And maybe it might have been the 2
you are
years
so
before that.
much more connected than I.
I'm sorry. I'm just anyway. So besides the UKGE, which I've really documented well on the Podfather Gaming YouTube channel, go check that out. I mean, it was fun. I was my first time there. The last episode, Ignacy and I were there, and we did a live quote unquote episode. It was just in the hotel room, and we did an episode there talking about how interesting it was. It's a great show, and now it is easily the third biggest board game show in the world. So I highly recommend to get a feel for that and the similarities and the differences between an American convention and a European convention. We kind of talk about that.
I
So
would
check
love
that
to
out.
go.
It's a pretty cool show. Last week I was in Las Vegas with my brother and some of his friends, my friends. We call it, I can't say what we call this. It's called the Boys SH Show. This is what we call it. We do bad boy things. And that's all I'm going to say, right? There's just too much of everything that you could do in Vegas that goes on this trip. What happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. But an amazing time. And I went to that basically directly from the UK. So, I had this 5 hour in one direction. I had essentially 8 hours going the other direction. And now I'm back home. Just got back home a couple of days ago. My body has no idea where it is right now. So it's crazy. And then in a week and a half, because in about a week and a half, Paul and I are going to fly out to Seattle to get on BGG at Sea, Alaska, for week 1 of that cruise. As I've said here many times, I love cruises, and the best cruise that you can possibly take, I haven't taken every style of cruise, of course, is to go to Alaska. The scenic beauty is crazy. The bald eagles are like pigeons. If you're a New Yorker and you know what the pigeon population is like there, bald eagles are all over the place. They're like on top of every telephone pole. It's amazing. So and everything, you just see all this gorgeous flora and fauna. Fantastic. I can't wait to do that. Plus, of course, the great gaming. Thank you to Jeff Anderson for putting that together. Thank you to Scott Alden and all of the BGG people bringing the library. It's going to be fantastic. The only other thing I'm going to mention, and then we'll get right to the amazing amount of news we have. The official news, of course, hit the press that Zev Schlesinger has left WizKids. We were the first to find out about it, and it was on ICV2 and all that. We wish Zev the absolute best in his next adventure in the huge campaign that he has undertaken in the game industry. Good luck, Zev.
I know he's gonna do something amazing. No doubt in my mind.
100%. Now we go to the event deck. So I'm not going to even talk about it again, but the Legacy, Ticket to Ride Legacy.
I hear there might have been a video about Ticket to Ride Legacy.
That only one person in the world actually produced and made that video. 1 minute video. You go check it out.
I know. I bet the views on that are way up there. If I had to throw a number out, I don't know what I would pick.
What number would you pick? 7,000? Okay.
Probably 7,000.
Not 7,000 or so. Actually, it's more. Anyway. So the biggest news of the week, and I had to sort the news and bubble up some of the biggest things that came out over the last week, and they are staggeringly big. The first thing was that Upper Deck, right? This is a game company, fairly large game company.
Yeah, I can take it if you want. Upper Deck is the company that did the deck building game Marvel Legendary, which was one of the first follow-ups to Dominion. Very popular. It's got 30 something, I think about 30 expansions now to this deck builder. But it came into the news that Upper Deck has put forth a lawsuit against Ravensburger, who is making the Disney Lorcana game, and specifically against the designer Ryan Miller. The reasons are for stealing and copying. In the filing, Upper Deck claims that it engaged Miller as a work-for-hire game designer to develop a major proprietary trading card game called Rush of Icor. After a year of developing Rush of Icor with Upper Deck, Miller terminated his contract with them, and either before termination or just after began working for Ravensburger. So they're claiming hanky-panky in there somewhere. So it goes on to say that Miller brought his work from Rush of Icor, knowing that it was owned by Epperdeck, to Ravensburger, which was then turned into the trading card game Disney Lorcana.
Right.
The lawsuit has 8 specific causes of action, 3 of them against Miller, 2 against Ravensburger, and 3 against the pair of them together. And they've got all sorts of fun, exciting, and terrifying legal terms, negligent interference with prospective economic relations, things like this.
Right.
The really interesting thing is very quickly Ravensburger had a response to this, and their response was simply, quote, "We at Ravensburger stand behind the integrity of our team and the originality of our products. The baseless claims filed this week are entirely without merit, and we look forward to proving this in due time. In the meantime, our focus continues to be on developing and launching a fantastic game in August."
Well,
so they are not anticipating any delays. They're not anticipating anything except release of Lorcana at Gen Con.
right. So, and adding to that, because those are all the facts, right? That was very good. Thank you for the summary there. Those are the facts. Adding to that, we can add the known element that game mechanics have been ruled not to be copyrightable, right? Or else we would have one deck building game, we'd have one worker placement game, etc., etc.
And there was a lawsuit involving GVDOC and the board game Bang, which definitively said mechanics are not defendable, are not copyrightable.
Right. But, and here's the but, and now we will say that I am not a lawyer, and if I was a lawyer, I'm not your lawyer, the same way I'm not Corey's financial advisor.
He really is.
So, and I'm also going to mention one more thing about this is Justin Jacobson, who's the president and part owner of Restoration Games, is a lawyer, and he did comment on it. So a little bit of what I'm saying comes from him. But overall, while correct, you can take mechanics. You can directly take a mechanics. You almost make an identical game. What you can't do is work for somebody and getting paid from them to do this thing, and then take that, terminate a contract, take everything that you just did, and bring it someplace else before that first game came out. That's got all kinds of implications of impropriety involved. I'm not saying that Mr. Miller did this. I don't know Mr. Miller. I believe you do know Mr. Miller, but don't
tangentially.
Oh, okay. And I know people. Know him well. Okay, I'm sorry. I know other people who do know him. Yeah. So that's not part of this. This is not a personal thing or a personality thing. This is simply trying to get the facts out. So what you can't do is what I'm trying to say here is that if the allegations that he worked there, well, that's just a fact. He did. He had a contract, terminated the contract. Fact. I mean, well, that's actually alleged. We don't know that he terminated or how that happened, but that's in the lawsuit. And then immediately went over to Ravensburger, pitched the same exact work that he just did, and then had them do it. This would potentially be illegal. Now, Now, if now you bring Ravensburger into the picture. Right. So Ravensburger, who we call the Hasbro of Germany, they're a very big company in Germany. They have huge amounts of toys and mass games. You know, think about it.
The jigsaw puzzle division is ridiculously huge.
Tremendous company in Germany and on the European continent, and they have a presence in the US as well. Ravensburger, I mean, just normal thought processes here, or possibly didn't know about everything we just talked about, other than this guy is coming to them with a game. It's a good game, and he says, if maybe we can, if you like to do this, and if there's a license that you want to put on it, again, that conversation we don't know about. So my entire take on this is that the only reason to bring Ravensburger into the lawsuit is because of the pockets, because a company like Ravensburger has deep pockets, right?
And the hype around Disney Lorcana is amazingly huge at this point.
It's huge. This is going to be it's going to sell hundreds of millions of dollars. Hundreds of millions of dollars.
Some people are saying that the only reason the lawsuit is popping up now is because the hype around Disney Lorcana has gotten so huge. Upper Deck claims they did not know how the game played until it was revealed at Gamma, which was very recent. So that the timeline kind of fits with the lawsuit is coming out now because Upper Deck had no idea that the game mechanics were so similar.
Yeah, and that, I mean, that makes sense too. Nobody knew how the game was going to be played. It could have been a Magic the Gathering clone. It could have been a completely new system. Apparently, allegedly, it looks almost identical to this game that Upper Deck has yet to release.
So, and Upper Deck says they're still pushing forward and still releasing this game.
I believe that if the allegations are true, and that's a huge if the allegations are true, and the game comes out, that they will be able to, Upper Deck will be able to get a piece of this, huge amount of money.
Well, I can see this. If
there's a lot of ifs there,
a bunch of ways. Yeah.
Okay. What do you think? I mean, what is your? I'm saying that Ravensburger is going to have, if it's proven to be true. Okay, that's just a huge if, guys out there. Please don't say that I think that's going to happen. If the allegations are true, and if the courts rule in favor of Upper Deck, I think that the damages will end up to be part of Ravensburger's take and probably all of Miller's take in this thing. What do you say?
Well, one of the golden rules out there is you do not sue Disney.
Well, they're not. That's a very
not take it lightly.
Well, then remember that. Hold on, that's a great point. Disney is barely mentioned in this suit. They're not one of the defendants. It's Mr. Miller and Ravensburger. Disney is only mentioned because, and the game is now coming out as Lorcana using an IP licensed through Disney. So Disney has nothing to do with this other than their name is on the game.
I can see Disney being upset with the rigmarole and the lawsuit.
Oh yeah,
and doing something or pulling out. I could see.
Wow.
I could see a settlement before any of this happens because there's a lot of money to be made in Lorcana. And is it going to be better to fight a tremendous lawsuit, or is it going to be better to just settle and make it go away?
That's actually a very, very possible way that this goes down.
And unfortunately, one of the more likely things is I can see all parties involved burning Ryan Miller as a scapegoat. And I hate to even bring up that possibility, but we've got big player company, designer. And it could go anywhere at this point.
I mean,
that's the one I'm worried about.
I mean, yes, it absolutely could go in that direction. I'm going to again mention that big player company number 2, which is the biggest company in this discussion, right? Disney is.
Yes.
So Disney is, I'm going to make up a number here. It's probably not factual. 100 times bigger than Ravensburger, which is 100 times bigger than pick an average company in the hobby game industry. So they are so big. And yes, suing Disney is not happening, and doing so is fraught with peril, what the state of Florida is trying to do right now.
Disney historically takes lawsuits and says, yeah, that's fine, sue us, we'll sue back. We will not back down.
Right. No. This is going to be in the news as much as any other news story that we talk about, and this is going to be one of the biggest. This, without a doubt, when we at the end of the year maybe talk about the biggest news stories of the year, this is going to be in the top 2. This and the Orc or the Wizards of the Coast.
I gotta tell you, this week there were so many. Well, I'm going to say the past few weeks there were so many huge news stories. I think everything we're going to talk about for years happened within the past 3 weeks.
You're not kidding. And the next one is about the biggest of the big in our industry, in the board game hobby, and that's Asmode's parent company, Embracer Group, has announced layoffs. And here's what this says. Embracer Group CEO Lars Wingefors announced that they will be entering a restructuring program, which will include layoffs across their company. Embracer Group is the owner of Asthma Day, Dark Horse, and Gearbox Entertainment, among other studios.
So many companies.
It's another difficult day for Embracer Group after posting bad news in their earnings report in May. The company will initiate a restructuring program in an effort to make Embracer leaner and more focused. Embracer has engaged in aggressive investment over the last several years, buying all sorts of assets. One of their most recent big acquisitions included Middle-earth Enterprises. We talked about that a lot. The IP holders of the Lord of the Rings and the Hobbit novels. The company is now looking to go from a current heavy investment mode to a highly cash flow generative business. So let's put this in normal terms. What does this mean? They are done with acquiring companies. That's the words that they just said. They are going to stop the growth model, which is all they did for the last 15 years. Growth, acquire. And I've actually said on this podcast and in other places, what was Asmode's core business? We've always talked about in terms of Asmode, but it's Embracer as well. It wasn't producing board games. It was acquiring board games. It was acquiring board games, distribution,
and this is
studios.
Really interesting because Asmode has only been under Embracer for a year or so, right? Maybe a little more.
2+ years, I think. Go ahead.
The previous owner, PAI, purely their entire interest in Asmode was buying it so that in the future they could sell it. They were an equity firm, and their entire job was to acquire companies and then sell.
Right.
And this is a different sugar daddy. So Embracer, you can see that the companies that they own all have a general theme. They're trying to make their companies work together. There's a lot of media and video games and comic books and all this. And they are trying to build a business rather than just collect companies and sell them later like stamp collecting. So it's a very different structure than what we've seen in the past.
Yep. I can't say more than the next few sentences, but I know of a major acquisition that was in progress at Asmode. I know of this, and it will not happen now. I guarantee it will not happen. I was privy to some information, and I guarantee it will not happen now because of this announcement, and due to some other information that I have that the discussion was not going as well. Let's put it that way. So this is the end of an interesting era, so to speak, for the way that this industry has grown up. So I'm interested to see how it goes. Again, Asmode has done great work here. Their parent company is now saying, stop acquiring. We're stopping acquiring. Let's move forward with restructuring. And this is the way we're going to become more profitable. Wow. Interesting stuff. Now, just when you thought it was, safe to buy Magic.
No. We got a segue here from Tolkien Estate under Embracer into
there you go.
I give you.
There you go.
Speaking of Tolkien.
Speaking of the Tolkien Estate.
There you go.
There you go. So again, even if you're not a Magic the Gathering player, you all know about the fact, most likely know about this. It's been happening for a year almost, that Magic the Gathering was going to be put out they call it Universes Beyond set of cards.
And they've done this before. They did a Warhammer set. They've done other themed sets.
But now they're coming out with the biggest of the big IPs. Of course, they're doing a Lord of the Rings set for Magic the Gathering.
Right. In
this set of cards, which is going to be a massive print run. I mean, just a massive print run. They, in their collector booster boxes, the bricks of the best boosters, the ones that the collectors want, there's going to be one card in these hundreds of millions, billion cards, who the heck knows? So many cards they're printing. One card is going to be the special, the One Ring card. There's going to be other Magic rings, other One Rings that are going to be worth a lot of money. But there's going to be
One Ring card that's ultra rare, but there's going to be one copy written in the black speech of Mordor.
Unbelievable.
And this is
great.
the one card.
The one card for the One Ring.
Technically, there's three.
Because they printed them for like the executives or something.
Different regions. There's an Asia one, there's a US
No,
one.
that is not true, Corey. That is not true.
They changed that.
I'm pretty sure that's not true. There is one English only card. I'm 99% sure on that because part of this story is going to address that. So someone very recently, only a week ago approximately, he was a former NFL player who owns a card
store in LA.
A card store in LA. And I would like to mention these because his name is Cassius Marsh Sr. And his store is called, I can't find it in here. I apologize for that. Oh, Cash Cards Unlimited. He first offered $100,000 for that card. He got flack online. And then he changed his offer like the next day to $500,000 for that one card, which would make it in the top pantheon of Magic the Gathering cards ever. The highest one has been around 600,000 or so.
Yeah.
Okay. But then the story gets better. A few days after that, Dave and Adam's Card World offered $1 million for the collector who brings them the One Ring card. This offer expires 1 month after the card, after the set actually releases, which is on June 17th. So at 1 month on July 17th, 2023, if that card is presented, they will be giving that person $1 million. But wait, there's more.
There's more.
Just yesterday, I'm pretty sure this came out yesterday or the day before. It came out this week. Spanish game store ups. Is that the name? No, Spanish games ups the offer. I apologize.
Gremio de Dragon, the Guild of Dragons.
The Guild of Dragons, translated from Spanish, is now offering not only $2 million for the one ring card, it is now also offering a trip to Spain and a delicious Valencian paella.
I'm in for the paella.
Yeah, screw the $2 million. I want the paella. So
I want the paella.
So we're talking about the craziness around Lorcana, but these numbers are so large and so crazy. I'm absolutely amazed. And by the way, to address the thing about the different places that the card is going to be, it was said here in this article, the final article that I'm looking at, Europeans were going to have a tougher time of finding the One Ring because it's only found in English collector boosters, which are likely in shorter supply, and higher demand than the ones in Europe. So that's my understanding of the way this is working. Corey, what do you think? It's just amazing what's going on here.
It is unbelievable. The hype around this thing is ridiculous. There's a really interesting side business that's been going on for a little while with Pokemon cards, more so, but also with Magic cards, that podcasters and YouTube influencers at the very highest tier are kind of making a side business of buying super valuable cards while filming it and making money off of the filming of it because it'll get enough views to offset the cost of buying the card a little bit. So there's a weird little side business going on too. The hype is driving income, even though it costs a tremendous amount of money. But $2 million is ridiculously out of the ballpark there.
That's out of the ballpark. There's always been this business in the sports card business of influencers buying sports card boxes. And not always, but in the last 10 years, you buy a sports card box and there's these ultra rare sports cards in there. And you say, okay, I'm buying this box. I'm going to open it live for you. And you get to have, if, you know, and you buy a piece of the box and you get all of the Yankees. You get all of the Cleveland, whatever the different things that people are looking for, you get that. So the box gets purchased, and then he splits up how much the different parts of this box are going to be.
Yeah.
And I've seen this, and I knew a guy who was in the sports card business, and he was actually doing this for a living as well. It's crazy.
I lost my mic.
Oh, all right. We're going to have to write that down.
It unplugged.
Did it affect anything besides
I
this
have
portion?
no idea. I just looked down.
I'm gonna. Oh, you don't know when it went out?
I don't know when it went out.
All right.
But I'm back on now.
All right, we're gonna have to. I'm gonna mention it to Josh to check.
My apologies.
Check around.
I've been staring like crazy.
I'm gonna check around the 28-minute mark for that, and if there's something that you need to re-record, I'm gonna ask you to, or he can just put my voice sequentially. All right, let's.
Well, I'm on Zoom as well, and this isn't too bad.
All right. So let me move into the next story with this, okay?
Of course.
Okay, so let me start. And guess what? In other, for me, very big news, because I talked about this extensively toward the end of last year when Hasbro re-announced Heroscape. They announced it at Gen Con, and they had some previews of some of the stuff, but their HasLab crowdfunding thing, which they don't need to do. They're doing that for the buzz. Hasbro Pulse, whatever it's called. The Kickstarter, the crowdfunding failed, and they said, well, we're not going to be doing it. And I said, this game is coming out. I said, this
too much development went into it.
But so here's the thing. Renegade Game Studio, our good friends over at Renegade, they are going to be licensing Heroscape from Hasbro and bringing it out and doing it in a more, I apologize to I do have friends at Hasbro, intelligent way. So here's their announcement. Renegade Game Studio has expanded their licensing partnership with Hasbro to include Heroscape, the company has announced. Heroscape's return to the tabletop was first announced by Avalon Hill as a Hasbro Pulse crowdfunding pre-order back in October 2022. The project did not meet its goals via the crowdfunding effort, and Heroscape was shelved once again. Now, Renegade has picked up Heroscape as a license and has plans to send it into hobby retail as well as partner with Hasbro Pulse to reach a wider audience. So this will not be crowdfunded, which I thought was interesting. I thought Renegade should throw it up on their system.
Well, I think Renegade would have gotten a little bit of grief for double dipping the crowdfunding. So I think it's a smart move to go straight to retail. The crowdfunding was kind of done already.
But I don't know what you mean by double dipping. All the money from the first crowdfunding gets refunded. Didn't get collected.
Exactly.
Now they didn't need, of course, to do that crowdfunding. They did it for the hype, but they did it so poorly. We talked about this, but let's go back.
They didn't announce it. They didn't talk about it. People didn't know what was going on.
And it was a like all or nothing. You had to spend, and I don't remember the number, and I apologize. We can go back and find out on like episode 250.
It was they wanted 8,000 units.
8,000 backers.
$3 billion.
And something like that. And and there was only like one pledge tier that was like, you get everything and it's $280. So some people said, like, I just want the factions. Some people said I wanted it painted. Some people said I'll take only the terrain. I have factions. So Renegade has specifically mentioned in their announcement, they'll have terrain packs, they'll have faction packs, the intelligent way that somebody would do this. And then, you know what? In a lot of cases, people have such FOMO, they'll end up buying it all anyway, but they want the options. So kudos to Renegade for brokering another deal They now do all kinds of stuff with Hasbro, right? They're bringing.
Well, that's what I was wondering, if this was an extension of the deal they already had, or was the previous deal basically a open door that they now can negotiate other things? Because they had Acquire, Axis, and Allies, all these big titles from Hasbro. So it almost seems like Heroscape fell into that same agreement.
It does and it doesn't. From my understanding, and again, this is like third hand at this point. It looks like what happened is Hasbro has this agreement with Renegade, and they ticked off several boxes, and then they ticked off several more. They kept they added, like, they did 3 games initially, then they added a couple more. It was like, okay, well, we have this agreement with this very successful company. Let's just put another addendum onto the contract, and now we have another one at this negotiated rate. There are other players that probably would have liked to have gotten this if offered. And I have to weigh inside knowledge versus not.
Oh,
so
of course.
I'm gonna put it to you this way. So there were other players that are in the industry that used to work at Hasbro that originally designed this game that could have probably wanted to get this game under their catalog, and they now work at other companies. I'm skirting a line here. I don't want to go too deeply. Renegade got the game. I'm happy this game is coming out. I will be buying this game when it comes out. It's so good. I'm so happy it's back in print.
I just hope they treat it nicely. Hasbro, kind of famous for doing the very minimum to get a game out. So I was a little worried with Heroscape that it would follow in the same path as Hero Quest, where there was not an updated version. It was basically a reprint of the old version.
Yeah, and I backed that, and I felt dirty. I literally felt dirty. After I backed Hero Quest, I felt bad about it, because it's like, you guys did not do any work to do anything on this game.
None. There's a couple of things that were new, but they still felt like they were made 20 years ago.
Yeah. So just when we had so much news that we would go to the next news segment, we're not going to. We're going to do one more piece of news, because this is huge news again. Cephalofair Games unveiled Gloomhaven 2nd edition.
Yes. Now, I just want to call back. We had asked, some very intelligent person had asked in the past, what crowdfunding campaign do you think will break the record of Frosthaven?
You did.
And I think this has the best chance so far. So we already knew that Cephalofair was doing a crowdfunding campaign for miniatures to go with Frosthaven and Gloomhaven.
Yep.
It's somewhere around 450 miniatures. It's a ridiculous number.
Painted.
Also, and in the same campaign was the Gloomhaven role-playing game, which used the actual board game and its cards and its materials to run a role-playing game. And now, in this same campaign, there is a 2nd edition of Gloomhaven. And what's crazy is it sounds like this is redesigned almost from the bottom up. There's new art, there's new assets, there's new rules, there's a new character, there's everything's redesigned. It's a better version of Gloomhaven. So Isaac Childress was quoted as saying, while Gloomhaven is well loved, I'm not sure anyone would call it perfect. I'm so excited to have the opportunity to make this incredible game even better, with a lot of polishing and refining of the content based on what I and the team have learned over the past 6 years by listening to fans and playing the game a lot ourselves. This new edition is going to be even more fantastic, unquote. So
I'm excited that they're doing this. But my little kind of caveat is that I don't believe they took a lot of crap, by the way, initially, from people saying, like, cash grab, I can't believe it, why do you have to do this? It's like, guys, this is the general thing. You learn from things you do, and then you do it again. Do people who own the current Gloomhaven need to have this? And look, all due respect to Isaac and Cephalofair, my answer to that is No, you got a great game. You've got one of the greatest games with thousands of hours of playtime. I'm not going to buy Gloomhaven Second Edition, but I think I'm not the target market because I bought Gloomhaven and then I bought Frosthaven.
Frosthaven.
I've
Now,
got
I'm wondering
thousands of hours.
how much of a market is there for people who have not heard of it and not bought it? I mean, is there a big untapped market for Gloomhaven? I honestly don't know.
I think that this is going to do well, of course, because there are the completists in the world, and the completists might sell their current Gloomhaven, which is kind of legacy. So you've destroyed things. So how does that work? But they will sell it, or they will just, I gotta have the new one, so they will buy the new one. You cannot fault them for saying we want to do an even better job than they did already. So I have no problem with the game coming out. I think it's a great idea. Congratulations to Isaac and Sepultura Games.
The interesting plus and minus with this one that's been getting a lot of flack is there is no upgrade from the old version of Gloomhaven to the new version. They've stated that so much was changed that in order to make an upgrade pack, they'd basically have to sell the entire game. So that's exciting in that this is a very, very new version of Gloomhaven, but it's gonna give people a little rankling there.
Undoubtedly, and people get rankled over everything. We have so much more news to talk, but we'll talk about it next week. This week, we go down to strategy and tactics. All right. So first of all, we have to mention we still have our contest going on, and there are 8 prizes in this contest. And it's also sponsored as well by the Grand Gamers Guild because they're just huge fans of us. And Mark came to me and said, I'd like to do some stuff with you guys too for this. And he publishes hit games like Endeavor, Artemis, Holiday Hijinks game lines. And
they're little micro deck escape room games. They are so fun.
They're so much fun. And he is offering all 7 of these micro games to one winner in the US and one winner elsewhere. And also, there'll be one Portal game US, one Portal game elsewhere, one Podfather merch item US elsewhere, one Corey Chorus merch item. But we have to figure a date where we're going to end this, Corey. That we haven't figured yet. I wanted to do it like episode 285, July. Ignacio's like, no, we end it. We give him urgency. So we'll see. Remember, everybody, 3 questions maximum. If I find 4 questions, unless you say, don't add this into my list of questions, then I have to disqualify you. So let's go to the questions here that we do have from our current set. Rob McClune, Ignacio and I actually started reading this one last week, and then we said, you know what, we're gonna wait for Corey on this one to see if he's got more detail. So Rob McClune, who's at Phantom Existence, he's interested in our take at what happened on Inside the Box. They are seemingly not going to be able to come through their Kickstarter for Subterra 2, but the game has found its way to retail. Also, the French and German versions seem to be arriving via another company. I saw Tim P., the designer, post he is not getting royalties and employees have not gotten paid. This was posted, by the way, in January. I could provide access to the updates if you want them. I just really want an insider's take on these events. So, Corey, I didn't know some of what he was talking. I know about.
I know the backstory.
Give us some story.
There was a lot of social media buzz that Inside the Box was not paying its employees. It was running out of cash, and they made the poor decision to not pay designers and employees while they were trying to fulfill this crowdfunding project. Unfortunately, I don't know too much more about what's happened since then. I know that the social media was really angry, and a lot of people were on the side of, pay your employees. That's a no-brainer.
Sure.
But I had not heard that Subterra had actually released, especially to retail. I can tell you that previous times things like this have happened, companies have taken the route of releasing to retail in order to build some money so that they then could come back and pay their debts or continue the Kickstarter. So it's not unusual to go the retail route for a quick influx of cash in order to fulfill the projects in other ways. And companies always get in trouble with this. the big one it happened to was FunForge. They had some ongoing projects that they had to go to retail first in order to build up enough capital to fulfill the Kickstarters. So, but I wish I knew more details about exactly what happened with Subterra 2. I just don't know.
Yeah, so we apologize, Rob, for not having all of this. The no-brainer answer is you pay your employees. You don't, you can't deliver a retail version, you know, and just not deliver a Kickstarter. That actually seems if that's true, so allegedly, if that's true, that seems criminal, right? So these guys funded me, but it's going out there and it's going out to French and Germany because I got people to do it, and I'm not going to be able to fulfill Kickstarters. That sounds really bad.
Let's just say the only source I have from any of this is rumor mill. It's what people have said on social media and what friends in the industry have said about it, which they learned from social media. I've not heard anything firsthand about what happened behind the scenes.
Bill Anderson, who's at Nix603, there are a comparatively small number of, quote, great designers, this is what he wrote, compared to the emerging number of game designers in the current industry. What are your thoughts on becoming a great designer? Is there an inborn ability, talent, special thing, in quotes, that sets aside, quote, great designers from, quote, regular designers? It's similar to sports where there's lots of great talent out there, but you also need a great deal of luck/blessing. He put a lot of quotes in this thing to be elevated to great. Is there something else that brings the greats to prominence that can be developed or taught? Let me take the beginning of this, Corey. So I had created at Stronghold Games a great designer series, and those games I put into there were due to people that I believed had added so much to the industry. One can debate whether a game's design is truly great or not. I mean, some people will say that Martin Wallace games are overblown and they shouldn't be the great. I mean, whatever the case may be, we can debate that. But in my bringing out of the Great Designer series, it was specifically to recognize people who had made such contributions as designers into the industry. And I think nobody can possibly say that a Martin Wallace, you know, is not in that category. His pantheon of games is amazing, his legacy in the industry, etc. So, but it's interesting that he's actually taking a slightly different route. He's saying, like, well, there's so many regular designers. Is there some thing that can make someone just great? Corey, give me some context around what you think could potentially say this guy is a great designer.
I think great designers are, I think the analogy to sports is pretty good. There are some people who just inherently have an analytic mind that can do a very logical kind of algorithm where A leads to B and B leads to C that makes a great game. But it also takes training, it takes work, it takes iteration. These games don't start great. These games start good and someone sees a spark in it, and then it has to be play tested. There's a whole team of developers, if it's done right, that will play with and manipulate the game and try to find the best game within this rough piece of coal, try to find the diamond within. So the great designers understand all this. They work with their developers. They will do the required amount of work in play testing and analysis to make sure that their game flows and is fun. And they have to be willing to allow this work to change dramatically. There's a saying within board game design that you have to be ready to get rid of your baby. You know, you have to take the parts you personally think are your very favorites, but if they drag the game down, you got to let them go. You have to be able to cut where you don't want to cut, and you have to be able to add where you don't want to add, and look at the bigger picture.
You need to remove your ego from the process. Ignacio he has said this in the past in some of his articles that when he gets a game in-house, he is going, you know, from an external designer, he is going to rip that game apart 7 ways to Sunday. It's going to become something that you're going to recognize, of course, as your game. and you're going to get paid because it's your game. But if it's not what you delivered, too bad. Right? So you have to divorce the ego and the stuff that you believe, oh, this is the absolute best. And I don't, I'm gonna make mention of Wolfgang Warsh, who hit the scene like and had not Spiel de Jares nomination, Spiel de Jares nomination.
Yeah, in two categories, he had 3 nominations one year. It was insane.
Prolific and genius is what I would say about him. Yeah. And he came out of nowhere.
Quacks of Quedlinburg was his big coming out, and the mind.
Ganz schön clever. It just keeps going.
Yeah.
His what he put into this industry in this short period of time was absolutely amazing. Is he a great designer? He certainly is a great designer, in my opinion. Let's get on to one more because we're going so unbelievably long on this episode. Ann W. Ann, I love Ann. She's so amazing. She came on the cruise. Awesome. Ann Skater is her BGG name. Looking at many of the best reviewed games of 2022, a large number of them are $100, $200 plus MSRPs, like one of our mutual favorites, Stephen, Foundations of Rome. We played this together on the cruise, on the Podfather cruise. Many of these games, if you used traditional pawns or meeples, cardboard, coins, etc., could be produced as $50 games. Yes, they could. But I don't see any publishers going that route, meaning they're not making scaled down mass market versions. What is the direction of the industry? It seems fans, including myself, seem willing to pay these monster prices, but isn't there even a greater number of a greater than normal downside if the box flops? Do you think this will be a, quote, new normal, or do you think there will eventually be a return to the $39 to $59 standard? Keep in mind, yesterday I plunked down $93 plus shipping on a flip and stretch game. I love it. She's so cool. Love you, Ann.
I think there's a whole bunch of different things I'll put into this question. It's a great question.
Yeah.
One thing we need to separate out is the Kickstarter market.
Yep.
So in crowdfunding, in Kickstarter, there's certain tenets that always seem to prove true. If you put miniatures in, you'll do much better. And so board game companies are always looking for the glitz and the glamour, the miniatures, the shock and awe that they can put into their project that'll bring bigger money. But I do disagree about not making less expensive versions. There is an entire market where companies will take a successful game and often through another publisher will make a mass market version that will be cheaper. It'll be a smaller box size, so it fits on Target and Walmart shelves. And they do well. So the biggest example of this that I remember recently was Fireball Island. Fireball Island is a massive game, and there is a smaller version done by Goliath that went onto mass market shelves. And this happens all over the place. And Goliath, who I just mentioned, is one of the big companies that'll do these toned down, less expensive versions. So it does happen, but when a game launches by crowdfunding, they want to make the glitziest, biggest hype version they can make. So often there is that initial big expensive version.
Yeah. So there's 100%. The $200 game is Kickstarter. If it's not on Kickstarter, that game will most likely flop unless something weird is going on right there. It's just not going to work. But once it funds and it does this great thing on Kickstarter, that game becomes that edition, and then later people will pick it up in smaller quantities, at their friendly local game store or order it online. That game can come up, and I don't have any knowledge here, but I'm going to bet that a lot of the games we just talked about will show up again in smaller versions in regular game stores, because Foundations of Rome is an amazing game. Not everybody needs another brick in their Calyx shelf, if they even own a Calyx shelf. So therefore, a $50 version will happen, and it's easy to transport to your friend's house, or just bring out.
I actually remember a raging debate when Foundations of Rome was being talked about whether it was going to be a massive miniatures epic or a cardboard, basically drawn right. So that was a raging debate before
it even happened.
Showed up. Yeah,
that's cool. Corey, we are gone so long. We need to get to our playtesting segment. So last week, actually, it was 2 weeks ago because we didn't do playtesting last week when Ignacy and I were at the UKGE. We saved this for this week.
Just lazy.
We are lazy. We had a different kind of episode. It had a different vibe. Me and him sitting next to each other. I think he had his hand on my knee. Anyway, let's talk about...
I'm going to imagine that you just pined about me not being there the whole time.
That's right. We wanted you to be there so we'd have a terrible shot of the three of us on the couch together. That would have made for this terrible, terrible video. Anyway.
All right.
The last time we had the segment, I asked the question, have you heard of any of the Spiel de Jares nominees from this year? Because I kind of said that there were unknowns. And regardless, are you excited about any of them? Will you go do research on them now that we have reported them? And also, please mention the Kenner Spiel de Jares ones as well. So, Corey, we had, as usual, a very large number. Here we have 2 pages of people who responded to playtesting 278. Anything stand out for you?
I mean, it was all really cool. I've heard about all of the spiel, but I agree they are kind of lesser known games, for lack of a better word. So Jorg Hopfgarten said our he owns Planet Unknown, Iki, Dorfromantik, and Next Station London. Played all of them except Iki and enjoyed them. Iki's scheduled for this weekend. Not interested in challengers and fun facts because they are party games that are rarely played in larger groups. So again, there's a lot there. I think it is more of a Euro-oriented group of nominations this year. Dorfromantik just only recently hit the US in an English version. So just an interesting take on it.
Yeah, so this is interesting. So, I mean, my quick review of all of these is that actually most people had heard of all the games. Clint Brubacken, good friend of both Corey and I, he says, just Planet Unknown, which I've played several times and I think is the best polyomino game, and Iki, which I played at the Dice Tower 2021 Orlando Retreat.
Now, Iki is a much older game that was recently had a second edition, and the second edition had a German publishing. So that's why it's in the list.
Okay. Chris Parrish, I've heard of most of them prior to the nomination list, but I've only played one, Planet Unknown, which I think that obviously was the most famous one, right? So which I think is deserving the awards and accolades, but I can't make a direct comparison. And Lal Margu says, I've heard of all of them and played them at least one time, apart from Next Station London. Seems to be very good. So I think we obviously have a very erudite group of people here who you know, we people on this who listen to us, I guess, are generally quite informed. So which is kind of cool that they have actually, you know, they knew about them.
They know the inside story,
which is really good. They are the insiders. Somebody said we need a name for our group of people. You're all insiders.
I like insiders.
So Corey, what did you want to ask everybody for next week?
I just want to do a quick shout out that Planet Unknown. This really is an underdog story. It's basically a 2-person company. Their game was amazing when it came out. I was so excited about it, and I just want to give a big congratulations that they got the nomination. It definitely deserves it.
Excellent.
So my question for the group, we've got so much news now about lawsuits and all this. I was wondering, were you planning on purchasing the initial release of Disney Lorcana? And does the news of an impending lawsuit influence you at all? So just want to see what sort of impact this has.
So, you know, so we ask each other these questions too when they come out. So if, by the way, if you go over to the Podfather Gaming YouTube channel, you can watch a playthrough of Disney Lorcana. They were showing it off at the UKGE, and I got to film most of a 10-minute playthrough, and you can see how it plays. And I played Disney Lorcana as well. It is a nice, light card game with enough juice in there that you know, gamers will play, but they'll definitely, the target for this is families, right, playing with their kids.
Of course, and it has to be.
And having said that, I am not planning on purchasing the initial release of Disney Lorcana. I am not specifically the target market. I did purchase, which comes soon, the initial release of Magic the Gathering Universes Beyond the Lord of the Rings, very long title. I did purchase the 4 commander decks, not because I'm looking to find the One Ring card, which I can't. It'll be in the collector boosters. I did that because it's Lord of the Rings, and I know the system of Magic. It'll be fun to play those 4 commander decks once in a while. So no, I'm not going to buy it. I'm going to obviously follow in how they do. And the news of an impending lawsuit has no influence on me. That has an influence on this podcast. That's all. Corey, how about you? Are you going to be buying?
Well, I wasn't planning on it. I played Magic the Gathering in 1990 something, and I haven't really been following it much since. I'm not a big trading card player. I find it really fascinating, but I'm not into the Disney Lorcana. I'm not into Disneyana, the collector of Disney items. I was not planning on buying it. Having said that, the news of a lawsuit doesn't really influence me at all. I find it really interesting where the battling is going to happen, and I think there is a tendency with anything that's going to be a really big money issue to draw in lawsuits. But if I were going to buy this, I would buy this regardless of the lawsuit.
Yeah, I think most people are going to answer that, and I bet people don't have this as part of their mindset. The lawsuit's going to happen. I wanted to buy this game, or I wasn't going to buy this game, and the lawsuit doesn't change my mind anyway. So, but
sure,
you guys out there, please tell us what you think, because while Corey was talking, because he's so long-winded, I actually created the thread on Board Game Geek. Please go to our guild, check out the playtesting thread for episode 280, and answer our question to you. In the meantime, we go to final scoring.
Just want to say that I find it fascinating every time Stephen Bonacore tells me I'm long-winded.
You are very long-winded. I'm sorry.
All right.
I love you, brother. I really do. The final scoring, my friend. The final scoring. Yes. Thank you so much for listening. Help us spread the word about this podcast by telling your friends to download Board Games Insider wherever they like to get their podcasts. Or you can watch Board Games Insider and other coverage of the UKGE and Disney Lorcana and Ticket to Ride Legacy on the Podfather of Gaming YouTube channel. If you haven't subscribed, please do. By the way, I am like 5 clicks away from 1,000 subscribers. Okay,
very curt and concise description from the not long-winded Stephen Monaco.
Go subscribe. Give me 1,000 subscribers. You want to be part of this podcast? You can just ask us questions for our strategy and tactics segment, possibly win prizes by posting them in the correct thread in our guild on Board Game Geek, and also answer our question to you from our playtesting segment by going to the guild and looking for the thread with this episode's question. The websites, portalgamesus.com, podfathergaming.com, dicetowerdish.com. We're all over social media. Please interact with us on Facebook. Please like our pages, /BoardGamesInsider, /PortalGamesUS, and /PodfatherGaming. You can speak directly to Ignacy, Corey, and Steven. Twitter and Instagram, it's at PortalGamesUS, at PodfatherGaming, at Dice Tower Dish, and at Dice Tower Now. And the active YouTube channels are Portal Games Movies, the Podfather of Gaming, and of course, the new and upcoming Above Board TV. Check out those dynamic videos. And on TikTok, Ignacy dances Portal Games US. We really would love to see you in person at an upcoming convention in 2023. I'll see you on BGG at Sea. Oh, after that, it's going to be Dice Tower East. You're going to be at Origins, right?
I'm going to be at Origins. I'm
That's
unfortunately
awesome.
Not going to make Dice Tower East this year.
It's so sad, so sad. The 3 of us could have been there in one place.
Too much Florida.
Board Games Insider is professionally edited by Joshua Bowman from Tabletop Submarine Podcast. If you want your podcast edited by Joshua, you can reach him at tabletopsubmarine@gmail.com. And that great voice doing the intro, outro, and in-between segments is that of Ray Greenlee. He can be convinced to do your voiceover work at raygreenleevoiceover.com. Anything special to mention before we leave this episode, Corey?
I don't want to be too long-winded, sir.
It's a very, very smart thing to do. Goodbye, everybody. We'll see you next week.
See you, everybody.
All right. Make sure you save carefully. Oh,
I know.
oh my God, I forgot this. Let's stop this. Oh my God.